Hello, today is February 13th, 2019. This is the standard kubeadm office hours. We have a pretty light agenda, so if you have topics to discuss, please add them to the meeting notes. Otherwise, let's get this party started. Merrick, do you want to talk about the state of packaging?
Sure. All right, so Mr. Goldstein and I have been working on some stuff, and let me post it, the same Google Doc that I was working in, I've just been pushing notes in. I'll post that again into the office hours. So, the current state, we have explored some stuff, specifically in FPM and FPM. NFPM had some limitations that we have now made us abandon it for now, because we didn't want to actually maintain the tool itself. FPM, this week I generated our packages using FPM. FPM's one downside is it doesn't have a YAML, it's just a command line utility. So we will have to do, one of our goals is to have a YAML that configuration file. And so what we're going to have to do is take a YAML and have something that parses that out into FPM commands. So we have a few things that are left that we need. So I'm going to be working on a KEP for this week. Some of the things that we need to figure out is some of the YAML. We don't have quite exactly how we're going to do everything in the YAML in a same way. So we're going to need to work on building out an example YAML and how that might look and how that might support all the features that we need to do. With this example is like with RPM dependencies, you know, on Fedora the dependency might be foo, and on OpenSUSE the dependency might be foo123. So that we need some way to override those, the dependencies might change between the debs and the RPM. So there needs to be some way to override them. So the other thing that we need to do is look into changelog support. FPM has it. I haven't looked into exactly how that might be supported, as well as in this, it needs to be supported in the YAML as well. Let's see. We've already decided against this. This is too much. Sorry, I didn't update that. Is Andy on the call? No, I don't think so. Anyways, so that's pretty much where we are. I'll be working on a KEP to condense all of this. Other things that we need to think about are actually compiling the code. Everything that I've done so far is just taking the binaries, so it doesn't actually compile the code, it just gets the binaries. And work on the KEP. So, any questions?
Do you need help at all, or you think you're on a good path right now?
So if anybody wants to look into any of these things, that would actually be really awesome, because I'm going to be trying to work on the KEP, and some of these things will need to be explained in the KEP, probably for a well-formed KEP, as well as some of the research into how we'll support some of these functions in YAML. Yeah, so if somebody has some ideas and would really like to jump in on this, they can contact me. I would love some help.
Don't all speak up at once. Bueller. This is pretty important, though, the long-term maintenance of this thing. We'll also have to sync with Hannes about the other side of this puzzle that we talked about, which is the release process. Generating the packages is one aspect, but actually getting this into a well-defined release process and handing it off to the release team is another piece that needs to be solved, as well as removing all of the existing tech debt stuff. So Hannes wants to meet sometime soon. We should probably coordinate with you, me, Andy, and whatnot to lay down at least the requirements for the KEPs, because he's going to have a KEP on his side. And then Aaron wants a KEP for us, even though I'm like, whatever, it's a refactor. So we'll have to do that work, and then we can update again. Given the time horizon for some of this stuff, we might be a little hard pressed to flip the switch of removing the old packages, but we could probably get to the point where we actually have the new packages being generated. So I'm okay with that in the main line. And then as soon as 115 flips, we could possibly do the shuffle of the packaging and then start the release process KEP as soon as 115 gets opened up. Do folks have thoughts there?
I mean, that was my general thought as well. So I agree.
Okay. Next up, I wanted to get a quick readout on the state of HA. I reviewed some PRs this morning from Iago. Fabrizio, do you have any TLDR update of things that are going on or any help you need?
If possible, Iago should give the update because I'm on a train and there is a lot of noise.
Yeah, Iago?
Hi. Sorry, I joined it now, so I not know what you are talking.
Did you want to get an update onto the state of HA?
Oh,
The
yes.
HA?
I am finished the PR that is introduced you upload the flag for the init command. So for now I need to write the test and probably tomorrow will be ready for merge.
So right now, the testing for this will only be manual. Is that correct? We have no automated test. We have unit tests for the individual functions, but we have no actual deployment configuration for this yet, do we?
Well, it's not finished. Only once it's finished, only then we can have tests. And we have to modify kind again because currently Fabrizio implemented it with the manual way of copy inserts, and we don't have a test path for this scenario. But so we have to. It's under question. I'm not sure if Ben is going to accept more PRs for this. So I cannot guarantee that we are going to have an end-to-end test for the new path this cycle.
I don't think we should go to beta or make it stated as beta until we actually have test automation in place of some kind. Does anyone have objections or thoughts for that?
I agree. I'm going to talk with Ben once we have this PR ready. I'm going to talk with Ben to see if he is okay with like switching from the. So I have a question. Do we want to keep the manual way as a test path?
We have to keep the manual way for the older version of Kubernetes.
Yeah, here is the problem that Ben is probably not going to like, to have both the old way and the new way, and we have to support the switch between the two in kind, so that's a problem, and we have worked on kind.
But Lubomir, this is already the switch, for instance, for the config. So it's not something really new, totally new to kind.
So you are saying that in the config we can add a switch?
No, I'm saying that there is already a switch linked to the Kubernetes version, and this switch is used to generate the right version of the config. And
Yeah.
we can reuse the same mechanism to use the automatic copy or the manual copy.
I'm not sure how this is going to work. We have to talk about it again. Because in the config, we currently don't expose any way to upload a cert or not.
I think that we can link this to the release of Kubernetes.
I see what you're saying, Fabrizio. I get it. So you're just going to switch on versions. So if it's 114, you use experimental control plane join, and you don't try to copy the certs. If it's 113 or earlier, you do the old path. Is that your thought?
Exactly, and then in future when we have the flag in the config that will drive this feature, we make a more sophisticated rule, allowing to test for the same version the two path.
Yeah, this can work. Okay.
So if we get tests in, it hits beta, do we want to make that statement, or do we want to hold for one more cycle to get more feedback?
I mean, so what is the timeline here? So feature freeze is the 7th of March, as far as I know. So this gives us like a 3 weeks and a half to finish the feature. And does that include like adding the test as well? Like, I forgot what the policy is. I think we have more time for the tests after the feature freeze.
You do.
Well, currently we don't have a single running kind test yet. So I am going to say that it's quite possible that we can do it, but at the same time there is a risk. So we might have to revisit this evaluation for the beta again.
I think that we have to stay alpha, sorry, for this because we are not making the config in this cycle.
It sounds good to me. I think we're just simplifying the process, and we'll have a better testing story. We keep on getting there incrementally, and we'll be able to actually maybe execute and have a full-fledged end-to-end test specifically for kubeadm proper. We have the suite ready to go. We just need to add the tests and set up the jiggery for that specific deployment.
Sounds good.
Next up, state of join phases. How's that going?
We have a PR from Rohit. I cannot pronounce his name. And we are kind of blocked on this because we are deciding what to do with the PR. And we're hopefully going to finish this by the end of this week. And this is the final phase, and the join phases should be complete. And at that point, we should do some auditing, I guess. And that's it for join phases. We found a bug in Cobra with Rafael that basically the join command line now. So now the join command line with the extra 32-byte key that we have to add with the, with the upload certificates functionality, is going to be super cluttered with information, and we might have to revisit the whole situation with the unnamed flags. But for this cycle, we're not going to do it. I'm just going to say that the join command line is going to be very long.
Yeah, but I must say that that problem with the unnamed, I mean, the problem that we found on Cobra is not related to the unnamed arc, but rather with the way that Cobra parses the arguments. But yeah, we can link to that later.
So yesterday they were talking about in the cluster component base meeting. They were talking about like some problems with Cobra. So I can see in the near future, like we fork Cobra as well. That might happen and we are going to then fix a bunch of stuff.
Well, I would much rather like subsume that work than for us to try to take it on, to be honest, right? In the future.
Yes. Basically, there's a weird case where Cobra takes one flag and it makes some wrong assumptions. But yeah, we cannot do much this cycle.
I'd say we wait for component standard work to be at least in some state finished off before dealing with this.
Yes.
Yep, agreed. Those are the major deliverables that we wanted to hit? Am I missing any other major deliverables that we wanted to hit for this cycle?
No, I think these two.
I think the test automation work too that you've done, Lubomir, is also one of the major milestones that we wanted to, major things we wanted to hit this cycle.
It's part of all the other priorities. Like the packages need testing, the HA needs testing, everything needs testing. It's like testing is everywhere, but yes, it's a priority as well.
Go ahead, Fabrizio.
So only one thing about the certificate copy. There was a comment from Jason, and basically Jason is asking if there is a way to pass the certificate key even if we are not changing the config. So in the original proposal, we were saying if you want to pass your key, you have to use the config. But we decided to move out of the radar the change of the config for this cycle. And now higher level tool like Cluster API have some problem in capturing the generated config. So we have to decide if we want to add a flag for passing the key to init.
And the question is, do we want to do this COI FWAC for this cycle, or should we wait for the next cycle when we are going to add the config changes with this COI FWAC?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think it's a... when we originally talked about this particular flag or option, we considered it a not nice to have, right? Like it would be a good thing to have, but for the primary use case for most people who are just getting things started, auto-generating the certificates seemed like a reasonable path forwards. For production grade environments that they would definitely have their own setup and passing it in will be a requirement.
Do you need this for the Cluster API currently for this cycle?
So we can't consume it from the AWS provider for Cluster API unless we can actually pass in that value, because we have no way to introspect the return text from kubeadm today.
You cannot see the output of the print join command, basically.
No, because we're initiating it through Cloud Init, so we don't have any way to go back and pull that output.
Seeing how that's one of the primary customers, we can add the command line option and punt on the config changes. I think that's reasonable. What do other folks think?
Sure, if there is demand for this cycle, we can do it.
A possible alternative is to implement a machine-readable output.
But like Jason is saying, that they cannot read the output at all.
Yeah, as it stands today, because we're initiating through Cloud Init and we don't have a separate process to feed back out the result today. We basically just kind of sit and spin and wait for the instance to come up. And I don't see that changing, within the next couple of months.
Okay.
I guess we can add it like after Yago completes the current PR with the implementation, we can add another PR for this specifically, I think.
Okay.
I'm okay.
All right, somebody want to record that in the notes? We kind of skipped ahead back and forth here. All right. Next one. Other updates. Fixed bug related to the difflib and other bugs in the defaults of the kubelet config. PRs are up for review, I'm guessing.
No, I'm just saying that we fixed a couple of bugs, basically related to the diff library we had. So I closed also another ticket we had about inconsistency in the diff output for kubeadm upgrade, and we have a visual situation because we cannot backport this patch to other releases. In a sense, it's a critical fix, but we are actually updating the whole vendor dependency. So, Tim, have you seen like instances of this being done, like backporting Cobra in other instances?
Typically, no. It depends upon what's been broken and whether or not it's a regression. So backporting, let me take a look at the actual issue.
It's the second one. It was approved by Chris yesterday. So Chuck found that a certain SHA that we are using of this library is broken. So we basically bumped the SHA with the whole process of bumping, staging, and everything.
Because it's been broken, because it's not a regressive, like you don't need to backport things. It's nice to backport fixes. Backporting dependencies is usually not done. You do need to backport security things and regressions, but there's always bugs in the code we release. You can't backport everything, otherwise progress won't be made. It's okay to punt on this to this cycle and just mark it as done and release this cycle and make sure that it's in the release notes, which it is. I don't think we need to backport it because you're going to get a lot of resistance trying to get a vendor dependency backported into a previous cycle unless it's a critical bug fix. And it's not necessarily critical. There's workarounds for a lot of this stuff. For the kubeadm diff stuff, you could just generate and do your own hand diff if you wanted to. There's nothing that prevents folks from doing that. So I think it's not critical. We can move forwards.
Yes, definitely. Also, it touches like everything in staging, the API server and client Go, and everything is a consumer of the difflib.
Yeah, I don't want to. Definitely don't want to go there. Then you went from like not really to hard no.
Yeah. So these are the updates I can think of. If anybody else has anything that they have fixed in a PR.
I have actually just sent up for review the deprecation of V1 alpha free. So like the future, like the next version is supposed to only allow V1 alpha free as a conversion source for migration to V1 beta 1, and won't allow you to use it in init join or whatever. So this is actually, I think we agreed on this back in December, but I was covered in other stuff.
So you basically now warn if you are using the V1 Alpha 3.
No, it basically errors out and points the user to just run kubeadm config migrate and generate the V1 beta 1 config.
It's kind of odd because we are keeping the old version. But we at the same time we are not bumping V1 now beta this cycle. So maybe we could have just kept this to work. But I guess it was decided to make this error viable this cycle at the same time.
I think the conversion is fine, and having an exit strategy is fine. It should be like, it will be one extra step, and they'd have to do it typically, if they're out of date in older versions, if we actually did version bumps. I don't have strong opinions. Anybody else?
I mean, this is a good forcing function for them to update, I think. So,
Yep,
but the question is, do we still support the conversion? Like, no, I guess.
we support it.
The automatic conversion.
Yeah, we actually use the automatic conversion.
But at the same time, it's going to error out.
Yep, it's just a check.
It's going to error out if you put a fresh version on a NIT. So like you should do, if you're updating or if you're doing an upgrade, it should auto convert. But if you do a fresh version on a NIT, it should fail. Is that what you're saying, Ross?
Yeah, basically, if you run init or join with v1 alpha 3 and it tries to load it from a byte slice currently, but from a file, it will actually error out.
So you cannot create a new cluster. That was the original one.
Yeah, it should be able to upgrade, or if it isn't, it's a bug and now fixed.
Okay. Well, I guess we can do this. I mean, I'm okay with it. So.
I'm okay with that too. So we are blocking only init, and we are asking the user to use the latest config when doing init. So I'm okay.
Agreed. That was easy. Are there other issues folks wanted to raise? Otherwise, I was going to use this time to potentially finish off the backlog grooming, and then we can skip tomorrow if we don't need to do it.
I have one PR that is the cache for certificates on init phase.
Oh, I was kind of opposed to that PR because all it did was optimize one extra file read, but you're actually localizing and caching the certificate data internally inside the process. So it becomes an attack vector. Like if a person wants to attack a process, then they have the keys to the kingdom. So I don't think the optimization justifies the potential security hole. I don't know what other folks think.
So we are already storing the certificates on disk. So it's usually easier to read them from disk instead of the process memory. But I agree that it increases the security risk to have them like that because we are keeping them for the lifespan of the process. So the old method is technically more secure in terms of the process lifespan.
Yeah, because there's a million ways to pwn a process nowadays with like Spectre and Meltdown and branch prediction vectors.
Yes.
So
please go ahead. Sorry.
So I don't know. It's not really a big optimization win. So I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, we can. I guess we can close this. The original to-do, Iago, we can remove the original to-dos because they are misleading. We shouldn't probably do this in terms of security. And in terms of Spectre exploits and branch prediction, I was able to phone myself, so it definitely works. Yes.
It would be good
Rutai?
also to know if when the GC comes in, it's really removing the information from the memory or just marking it as free. It would be interesting also to know that. Because even if we are not caching it, we can still have it on the memory, despite it's free, but still it's there.
Yeah, I mean, we can also encrypt the certs in memory, which is the next step.
Super overkill, guys, folks. Why don't we get to the backlog here for a second, because I think that will kind of like justify whether or not we should over-engineer something, or if we should actually like, you know, fix the backlog, because we have a lot of stuff there. Let me share my screen. All right, hopefully folks can see my screen.
Yes.
Great. Let me know if you want me to resize anything. I believe we stopped.
It was somewhere in the middle.
Yep, it's right about here. A lot of the other ones actually have been closed, so we're doing pretty good. So I wanted to call out here the sheer number of health wanted ones, because we have some people can't work on kubeadm this cycle. So a lot of the things that we originally had on this list are no longer there. And we have ones that have been around for a long time, but we haven't actually made traction on some of them. So like one of the ones I want to call out here in particular is that we've had the quote unquote graduate bootstrap tokens to GA on our cycle for many, many cycles. This would require lifting and changing of the config, as well as communicating with API machinery. But I'm going to be honest, even though I've been on this list and know what needs to get done, I will probably not have time to do it. So if there are other folks that want to step up here and to do a long-standing cleanup / refactor work, it's not easy. So you have to have experience with both API machinery and the config.
I mean, we should probably have someone with guidance in the next cycle that instructs somebody how to do this, because it's definitely not a good first issue. It's help wanted, but it's not easy, like you're saying.
Yep.
And also, personally, I do not know all the details, so probably move to the next cycle, I see.
Oh, sadsies.
I think that once Lucas gets back, we can actually tackle this far better, because he has some connections in API machinery.
Yes, Lucas said that he's going to be back in a month and a half.
All right. Scrolling down here. That's active. This is a documentation thing. This active. This seems like user error. I'll need to verify that one. Configure secure serving. Ah, yes, this is a good one. I know that I believe we had PRs against this, but we have some issues. They didn't actually finish it. Configure secure serving for controller manager and scheduler. We don't actually do this yet today. We actually have a bunch of security issues that are kind of dropped on the floor right now, because Liz will be out for several months. If there's any person who loves security and wants to get involved. Anybody?
I can take it.
Who is that?
Iago.
Iago? So there are some PRs on this particular one. I need to double check this particular one. You first need to set up the default for serving securely.
Okay.
The key thing there too will be checking the upgrade tests. Right.
And our upgrade tests are currently quite broken. I'm suspecting that the upgrade framework is just not working anymore correctly.
Enable the root CA cert publisher controller. I don't even think this is going to happen at all.
I don't even, yeah, I don't know what this controller is doing even.
Chuck, you commented. Do you have any details here?
No, I was just clarifying the intent of the ticket.
If I remember well, I commented today.
Go ahead, Fabrizio. We can hear you.
If I remember well, I commented today. We by default all the so the Kuba controller will enable this by default. We will get it into without any change.
So if I somehow parsed what you said properly, we don't need to do anything. Is that correct? You cut out quite a bit there.
Yes, sorry. I'm driving, so sorry for that.
Well, why don't I just touch base on this one real quick, just to refresh. Go on to the next one. Testing for changes is already active. Bumping a version active. Using IP port or kubeadm join command to render kubelet config and kubeproxy on node, please. Oh, I think I know why. Yeah, this is on me again. I'll evaluate this one. I didn't want to do this one. I thought I closed this. Liveness probes for Kube API server pot are failing when anonymous auth equals false. Iago.
So, why is it happening in the first place?
This is really old too. We don't do anonymous auth by default anymore. You have to opt into it. So I thought I closed this. Yeah.
Why is there a requirement for a different probe? Is it a different, basically HTTPS versus HTTP or something like that? What is the actual problem here?
I don't understand his statement that he's making. I don't. What I never got from this particular issue is why you would do this. Like, why would you want to have? Wait a second. When anonymous auth equals false in place. We already default to secure. Is the API server port for the liveness check secured now?
I think it's HTTPS. Anybody?
Yeah, Yaga, you want to confirm this one, or does somebody else want to
Yeah,
help?
I can take care of to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to even do this anymore if this is actually closed, so we can move on to the next one. Recurrent IPv community upgrade needs attention. I think Jason, you filed this one.
Oh, I remember this one. It's about the format we use when we print stuff to the output, basically. The table.
This seems pretty.
Yeah, I remember that now. That was a while back.
Does someone want to take this one? It seems pretty trivial. If folks want to, if folks have time. Otherwise, we can always punt it.
So I remember it not being overly trivial because of the way that we're printing things out today. And if you're swapping out components, that's where the kind of issue comes in. So it required more invasive changes, and that's why it became an issue instead of rolling it into the core DNS default fix that I put in place back then.
I'm a firm punt, unless anybody wants to jump on this.
Let's move it to the next. Yeah.
Kernel modules. Warning seems confusing.
Yeah, so we are consuming a module, like a check that somebody implemented, and the underlying check for IPVS is kind of confusing because on Linux it's not so easy to detect what is the module enabled, is the module loaded, and something like that. Like, I don't remember the exact details, but this is like a kind ecosystem.
This is for, we're incorporating a library that then prints out a statement. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically there is a backend check that Stuart Yu implemented, one of the guys in the thread. But users are finding it confusing.
Looks like there's a PR against it now.
I've been working on this PR. It's at Bartosz. So I proposed PR, like fixing it, but it was rejected. And what we can do, I think, is to just change the warning. It would be less confusing because the way I proposed, like to check the modules and like enhance this check, it didn't go through. So the steward was against it, I believe.
Okay. Do you want to still update the output warning this cycle,
Yeah,
or do you?
yeah, I can do it, and we can close it. It would be better.
Right, I have assigned to you.
Okay.
Also, the problem there is that every single distro has specific quirks surrounding the kernel config and the path where the config is stored after the user installs the distro. So we oftentimes get a new PR that basically includes a new path as part of the verification process. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Next one up is kubeadm doesn't check address families are consistent. I believe this is another one of those ones where I was like potentially wanting to punt here.
I mean, would have been better if Alexander can provide some feedback, like how we should proceed with this first.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to punt this out because it's not been regularly pinged and unassigned Alexander for the time being. because I haven't seen him around for a while. Ed, is Alexander working on different things nowadays?
I don't know if he is working on this PR, but I can ping him.
Okay. I will just put it into the next bucket. Kube proxy scheduled before node is initialized by cloud controller.
So it seems I provided some sort of a workaround. I don't remember.
I can take a look at this to investigate whether or not we should. It's see what the state is. Do. kubeadm reset command, whether remove etcd. Oh, actually, let me go back down one. Change fetch config from file or cluster parameter to improve command, upgrade, join, reset. That's active. kubeadm reset command, whether remove etcd member on master.
Oh, I'm kind of opposing to this with no strong opinions, of course, but I don't think we should touch like LCD. But what do others think about this?
Jason, Chuck.
I'm not sure, it's tricky because if we don't remove the member and we just remove the static manifest, then that node will be down from the etcd point of view.
I think it should be removed if you do a reset. That's my opinion.
Yeah, reset is really a developer tool. I feel like it should reset everything.
Anyone want to take this one? I do think this is worthy to do. I don't think it's hard to do.
If it's a good to have, I can take a look at that. I don't want to overcome it because, yeah.
I think that someone
So
volunteered.
one of the
There was already a guy who volunteered, the guy who opened the issue.
So one question that I have is, when we do a reset, are we updating the config map that's stored in the cluster as well? Because we'd want to do that as well.
There is a PR in flight for updating the config when we do a reset. And so we are taking both. And they are tracked also in the HA tracking issue.
If they're tracking a tracking issue, should we just close this one?
If I remember correctly, we had an umbrella issue and we had different specific issues, one for etcd, one for the config map, and something else, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I'm using the tracking issue only to put all the pieces together. And so please leave also the single issues.
All right, we'll leave it there. And Raphael, you've got a signee on that one.
Yep.
Give me a second to clean up a little bit here. All right. Next up, kubeadm generate kubelet certs with master CAs.
I don't understand this, and if there is nobody who understands this and can work on this, I just would move it to the next cycle. That's what I would do.
Yeah, sadly Liz is out.
Is this really related to kubeadmin? That's my question.
Well, we manage the certs. So why is it a bug?
It's not a bug. I think they're asking for a feature request.
Yeah.
Got a couple more minutes. Can't set DNS service cluster IP.
So this seems like a resolve conf problem. I'm not sure. Like this is some sort of a user problem that is not reproducible by others, it seems to me. So to my understanding, he's passing cluster DNS, but this is not applying. Related to resolve conf.
There hasn't been any feedback on this one for a long time too.
Yes.
I'm gonna close.
Sounds good.
I don't recall what the problem was here, the Godoc one.
Fabrizio created this because we want to link correctly between correctly two specific versions of Godot. Currently, everything is bound to master. That was a problem. But this is definitely help wanted if somebody wants to take a look at this. At the same time, we, like the group, don't really have the time for it, so help wanted.
I guess that for now it's not possible.
You're saying that it's not possible?
Yeah.
Maybe using the tool that Fabrizio suggested, but it might be very tricky to do it. I don't know.
That was the versioning. I think what matters most nowadays that kubeadm is at a specific date is the versions that are supported, like the V1 beta 1 versus the V1 beta 2 eventually, because that's the information that we originally linked the most. And what we were doing before is changing every single cycle, but now with things changing less often, I don't see us being as big of a problem. Thoughts?
Yes, the problem is like if you go to K website in the old branch in the docs, you can click a link, and this is going to link to the master branch basically, because Go docs always fetch the master branch, and in the master branch we already deleted like the old versions of the config. That's
yeah, I remember the problem. I don't think this is going to be much of a problem going forwards because we're going to have to support the version across release cycles. And because we only support 3, those things should be live for the most part. There could be a window of opportunity where it won't be, but when we were changing alphas, that was a problem.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to close this unless someone else actually reports the issue itself.
Yes, +1 from me. And if somebody reports, we can just like point them to the old branch to the Go file, basically.
Okay for me.
Might have about 2 more. Skip phases.
I don't think anybody is going to have time for this this cycle. We are overbooked. This is something that has to be developed, planned, tested, and yeah, it's for next or for the 115 milestone. So in terms of certificates rotations, by the way, we don't have any good docs. So Liz added some basic documentation, but people want more detail. And maybe the next meeting we can discuss like improving the rotation documentation, because people don't know how to do it and they Google about it.
Okay, we can leave this one open as help wanted for this cycle if folks want to jump on it. I think we're kind of at time now, but we still have a couple more to go through. Do you want it tomorrow? We were tentatively planning to finish off the backlog grooming by tomorrow. So if folks wanted to join, same bat time, same bat channel, and we'll finish off and get 114 nailed down.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.